It's shortly before sunset on May 25, 2003. You're an air traffic controller at Quatro de Fevereiro Airport in Luanda, Angola. It's been a routine afternoon. The usual regional traffic, nothing unusual on the tarmac. Then something catches your attention. A Boeing 727 has begun taxiing. Without communicating with your tower. Without clearance. Without a flight plan. You try to raise them on the radio. Nothing. The plane maneuvers erratically. It enters a runway without clearance. You try again. Still nothing. Without lights, it takes off, heading southwest over the Atlantic Ocean. Its transponder is off. Your radar shows it for a moment, then nothing. The largest aircraft ever to disappear without a trace has just left your airport. You will never see it again. Nobody will. The aircraft was a Boeing 727-223, registration N844AA, manufactured in 1975 and operated by American Airlines for 25 years. By 2003 it had logged 68,488 hours in the sky and 43,390 cycles over 26. 5 years. A workhorse. An old one. It had been grounded at Quatro de Fevereiro Airport since March 2002, sitting idle for 14 months, accruing more than $50,000 in unpaid airport fees. The plane's recent history is a tangle of failed business deals and broken contracts. It had been leased to a man named Keith Irwin, a South African entrepreneur, who stripped out the passenger seats and outfitted the aircraft to carry diesel fuel. His plan was to supply fuel to diamond mines in Angola. The plan collapsed. Irwin defaulted on his payments and the aircraft sat idle, accruing over $4 million in unpaid airport fees. Then, in April 2003, Irwin left Angola entirely, abandoning the aircraft, after someone attempted to break into his hotel room for unknown reasons. The plane's owner, Maury Joseph, president of Florida-based aerospace sales and leasing, hired a certified aircraft mechanic and flight engineer named Charles Padilla to return the 727 to flight-ready status so it could be repossessed. Joseph gave Padilla $43,000 to pay the holding fees to the airport. Padilla paid them, faxed the receipt, got to work. Joseph scheduled an Air Gemini crew to fly the aircraft out on May 26, 2003, one day after the plane disappeared. Charles Padilla was a certified flight engineer, aircraft mechanic, and private pilot. He was American, from Pensacola, Florida. He had no criminal history. He had been in Angola for 2 months at the time of his disappearance. He knew the 727 intimately. He had been working on it for weeks. What he was not was a qualified 727 pilot. A crew of 3 is required to fly a Boeing 727. Padilla was not certified to fly it. With him was John Mikel Mutantu, a helper Padilla had recently hired, from the Republic of the Congo. Mutantu was not a pilot. 2 men, neither qualified to fly the aircraft they were on. With no lights, the aircraft took off heading southwest over the Atlantic Ocean before disappearing. Neither the aircraft nor the 2 men have been seen since. No debris from the aircraft has been found. Given the global security climate post 9/11, the potential use of the aircraft for a terrorist act was a significant concern. Despite the urgency and scale of the search, there was little evidence to go on. It was never clear whether it was stolen for insurance purposes by the owners, whether it was stolen with the intent to make it available to unsavory characters, or whether it was a deliberate, concerted terrorist attempt. Investigators initially believed that Joseph hired Padilla as part of an insurance scheme to recoup his losses. As it turned out, Joseph wasn't a stranger to fraud. The Securities and Exchange Commission had charged him just a few years prior with falsifying financial statements and defrauding investors. But Joseph rang up the FBI and volunteered to take a lie detector test, and passed it. The plane's last radio contact was to ask for landing permission in the Seychelles. It is unclear who was speaking over the radio. It never landed. One crew member from the fuel delivery operation thinks the Angolan Air Force shot it down with a missile. A Luandan pilot says the word there is that the aircraft went north and vanished near Kinshasa, Congo. One of Padilla's friends says the airplane was disassembled for parts in Bujumbura, Burundi. Another theory. It simply crashed into the Atlantic shortly after takeoff, killing both men, and the ocean swallowed it whole. Picking through the fragments of N844AA's history, there is a story of broken deals, disappointments, and betrayals. but no real clues to the aircraft's destination that day in 2003. The FBI, CIA, and NSA all investigated. The United Kingdom and several African nations searched. Nothing was ever found. No trace of the aircraft has ever been found. The disappearance of N844AA presents one of the most diagnostically complex behavioral puzzles in modern true crime. Because the central question isn't who did it, but whether the men we know were on board were perpetrators, victims, or simply two people in the wrong place at the wrong time. Start with what the behavioral evidence tells us about the flight itself. The plane's external lights remained off. The transponder had been turned off. The crew did not respond to any attempts at communication by air traffic control. These are deliberate acts, not the actions of two panicked mechanics who accidentally started taxiing a plane they couldn't control. Someone on board made conscious decisions to disable the plane's visibility and communication systems before takeoff. That's premeditation. That's operational knowledge. That's someone who understood what those systems did and chose to disable them. This behavioral signature points toward one of three psychological profiles. The first is the desperate actor, someone who had run out of conventional options and took an extreme action as a last resort. The broken business deal, the accrued fees, the abandoned aircraft, the context surrounding N844AA was a landscape of failure and financial desperation. Desperate actors frequently make decisions that appear irrational from the outside but have an internal logic. If everything is already lost, the calculus of risk changes completely. The second is the coerced participant, someone who was on the plane not by choice but by force or manipulation. Padilla's brother believes he was either killed or held prisoner somewhere. If a third party was already on the aircraft when Padilla and Mutantu boarded for routine maintenance, if they were taken rather than taking, then the erratic taxiing, the disabled transponder, the absence of communication all make sense as the actions of people trying to prevent the plane from leaving rather than people trying to make it go. The third is the planned disappearance, someone who intended from the beginning to vanish, and used the chaos of Angola's post-Civil War infrastructure and limited radar coverage to do it. The 2003 timing matters. The theft took place on the eve of the plane being repossessed, a deadline that creates the kind of now or never pressure that behavioral analysts consistently identify as a trigger for high-risk decisions. What the behavioral evidence cannot resolve is the most fundamental question. Did Ben Charles Padilla choose to disappear, or did someone disappear him? We may never know for sure where it went. It is the largest aircraft ever to have disappeared without a trace. Somewhere over Africa or the Atlantic Ocean, in the fading light of May 25, 2003, a Boeing 727 carrying 2 men and 14,000 gallons of fuel flew into the dark and never came back.